Smokin' Joe Frazier, one of the greatest boxers of all time. Me personally, I'm more of an Iron Mike Tyson fan. Baddest man on the planet. You know what else is bad? A fucking leaking turbo. There we go, full circle. Sorry for swearing, it's gonna happen a lot, get used to it. So we're gonna take what appears on the surface to be a running and driving turbo truck that's virtually done, and we're gonna rip it apart because we got a bunch of stuff to fix. First off, gotta pull this turbo off and tear it apart, put new seals and stuff in it. Those are on the way, they're not here yet. It'll probably be a few more days. And then I have to pull off this Fowler Speed and Performance log manifold. A lot of people have asked what I'm using. It's just, let me cover it real quick. It is a stock 5.3 truck manifold over here. I custom made a crossover that's, I don't know, decent. And then a Fowler Speed and Performance log manifold over here that you guys cannot see. You'll see it once I pull it off the truck, but for now, take my word on it. So the turbo has to come off because, like I said, it needs new seals. And then in the manifold, I'm going to... Thank you. That's exactly what I needed. Yeah. And then in the manifold, I'm going to see... I think I can get the wastegate in there because I still... I just really don't want to put the wastegate on the housing. Just in case down the road I want to put this on something else. I don't want to spend like 130 bucks on a new exhaust housing. I'm going to try to fit it down here. There's a good amount of room, and then I'll just figure something out for like a dump pipe off the wastegate. That'll probably be somewhat easy. I'll just point it right at the ground, I guess. So first things first, we got to get the turbo ripped off the truck and start tearing that apart. Kind of see what it looks like inside, because I've never had this thing apart. Alright, so we have the turbo off the truck, and you can see just how much of an oily mess this is. I'm really hoping that it just needs seals, because that's all I bought. All the blades and everything look fine. I think I'm going to leave this together for now until the rebuild kit shows up. Then I can do it all at once and not like misplace something or forget where something goes or anything like that. There is a company called Turbo Labs of America. They have a couple pretty good videos and a lot of how-to on how to rebuild a bunch of different turbos. But obviously I'm only looking at like the S400 series turbos. And while everything is kind of out of the way, I think I found a pretty good place for the wastegate that will get a pretty good amount of flow. I'm going to put it right in like this general area. I have it actually marked out where, right there is where I thought it fit pretty good. All the flow is pretty much directed at it as much as I can get it. And I have seen plenty of people put them 90 degrees right here without any issue. And that's what I was going to do, and then I was looking and I was like, there's a bunch of room right there that's not going to be occupied, and I can direct this like pretty much straight to the ground in between the frame and the steering rack there, so I think that'll work out really well. And then I also took the time to measure out about 20 inches from the tip for the wideband sensor and marked a spot for that so that it's at the right angle, because ideally you don't want those any closer than 18 inches from the end of the pipe, so I'm going to be about 20, so it's pretty safe there. And then you want it clocked at like a 10 or 15 degree angle, that way it doesn't collect any moisture. Obviously that's not critical because the speed engineering kit that I had on the truck, it was kind of clocked down 10 degrees and it was like that for what, 2 years, no issues. And then for the passenger side narrowband, I'm just going to put it right here on the other side, so it'll be on this side pointing in. That'll be no problem. The one inherent flaw with like these log style manifold turbo kits is the oxygen sensor situation, because you're going to get one that reads one side no problem. In my case, it's going to be the driver's side is reading just like it normally would, and then the other side's going to read both banks. It's just the way it is. If you can do it the same way I have the RX-7 set up, where there's like runners in between where it merges together. So I've got an oxygen sensor over there at the elbow, and then I've got another one right in there. In that situation, it will read both banks individually with no issues. So pretty much the only thing left is to just pull off this Fowler manifold and start drilling holes into it. Alright, Alright, got the manifold off, and I got the wastegate flange taped up using just some PET tape. If you guys don't know about this stuff is great. We used it at line-to-line coatings when I worked there doing some powder coating. Super high temperature resistant, so it's great for TIG welding, and when you peel it off, it doesn't leave a residue. Just a little quick tip there. So right there's about, I mean, it doesn't have to be super precise, but I wanted to make sure that I could kind of keep track of where it needed to be once I got the manifold off. You can see that I tried to kind of mark it out when I was just holding the wastegate there, but the tape works a whole lot better. So now I'm going to get a better mark, and then I'm going to take a little template and trace kind of the angle. I'm going to use this stuff as just like a little neck for the flange here, just so that I can get a good weld all the way around it. Alright, one more quick little like tech tip while I'm here screwing around with things. So obviously this pipe has a radius to it, and if you wanted to, you could take the time and just grind this out and check it and grind it out and check it and grind it out and check it. That's fine. I've done that. It works just fine. But something you can do, take a piece of paper, wrap it around the pipe, and then tape it so that you can slide it up and down and remove it. And then what you can do with this is trace the radius to the paper, and then you can cut the paper out, and then you can match it up. And then once you cut the excess off, you can just slide it right down on the pipe and trace your radius to the pipe just like that. And this is the piece that we end up with. I'm going to call it fine enough to weld. So before I actually weld it on, I'm going to tack it all together and then test fit the manifold and make sure that the wastegate's still in the right place, because it'll be easier to move it there than after I finish weld everything and fuck it up. So let me kind of glue this together. Alright, the flange is welded on. So the next step is to actually drill out the hole so that the wastegate can actually gate waste. Disclosure, I totally stole that idea from the Fabrication series and it worked out perfect. Your first kind of inclination is to drill the hole and then weld around it, but this is so much easier and you don't have to worry about blowing through or melting off the edges of something. I think I'm going to go back through and try and clean up some of these welds, at least like these ones that are visible. Well, I mean, the main ones that are going to be visible are right there, and those aren't too bad. I don't know. But it's like 11:30, so I think I'm going to call it for the night. We'll pick up tomorrow. Alright, we got the turbo all back together. There really wasn't that much to show because it turns out turbos are super simple to put a little rebuild kit in. Pretty much there's just a few of these little clips, one on each side of these little bearings, one on top, and then one on bottom that I can't freaking grab. And that just holds those in place. It does feel tighter now, so I think these are slightly, I mean, you can see some, maybe you guys can't see on camera, but there's a little bit of wear on the inside, so it's definitely tighter. And then I obviously put a restrictor on here. I might drill it out down the road because it is a super tiny hole, but I figured I'll start with this, see how it does. And then we put a 360-degree bushing in there. Bushing? I don't remember what they're called. I think it's bushing. Whereas this one's obviously only like 120 degree, or no, 270 degree, whatever the fuck it is. The 360 degree ones obviously go all the way around this, and you don't have this piece that slides in. You have a like 2-piece bearing that goes in from either side. But it is all together. It was, like I said, super simple. And then I did get the oxygen sensor bungs welded in the downpipe, and the wastegate flange and O2 bung welded on the Fowler speed manifold. Everything's looking good there. This got a little ugly. This one's really not that bad. I'm trying to remember where I left off on things, because it's like 3 or 4 days later, because stuff has just been so hectic around here. Had a baby. Just gloss over that. But yeah, stuff's been super hectic around here. We were at the hospital for pretty much 2 days. And then I got a new power steering pump and pulley in. So I just need to get that all together and get the pulley pressed on. I think that'll pretty much take care of the engine. I'm gonna throw the exhaust and turbo and dump pipe on there, because I'm pretty sure I'm done with all that. So that can all get back on the engine for hopefully the final time for at least a while. Try to clean some things up a little bit, and then see what's next on the agenda. Alright, I got the manifold and exhaust all back hooked up. I'm about to put the wastegate on. But before I just throw that on, I'm going to avoid a critical mistake, and I'm going to check the springs that are in it. I guess this isn't super critical because I'm going to be running relatively a lot of boost. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if this had a bunch of springs in it. But I'd like to know. I don't want these to be more than like 14, 15 pounds. I've only got one spring in here. And the diaphragm looks good. I think that if I'm in like the 700 horsepower range, this thing's gonna be a monster. This might be like an 8-pound spring. So I'm going to just reset this diaphragm, and then we'll get this thrown in the truck and start putting the downpipe in, because it's easier to put that in with the turbo not in place. I'll put the turbo on, and we might test fire it. We'll see. Alright, as far as the turbo goes, Goldie Hawn's all back together. The only thing not hooked up is the passenger side oxygen sensor, the narrow band one. And that's because I need to get like a little extender harness for it. I'll probably just make one. I've got enough scrap stuff laying around. There is no shaft play whatsoever now. The turbo spins nice and easy. Like before, there was a tiny bit of shaft play, but it's always spun nice and easy. But now there is nothing. I'm actually shaking the truck. So one of the last little goodies that I want to throw on it real quick is what's called a turbo blanket, and I haven't actually used one of these since my Turbo Conquest. I think about 5 years ago is when I had that thing. And that was pretty much like the last actual turbo vehicle I've had that was running and driving. These things are really simple to install, but they can be finicky little turds. You know what I mean? So the only thing that actually holds them in place is a couple springs on these metal clips that are at each end. And I think I'm only going to be able to get this backside one in. Let me try to get this other one in. It would be hack if I didn't even try, you know? Yeah, not worth it. Not worth it at all. It cleaned it up so much though. It looks really good. It looks really good. And I dig that it like mostly matches the truck. Alright, we can't go through all this work and not test it, so I got the battery hooked up, a couple things just kind of connected, went through and hopefully checked everything to make sure everything's plugged in. This is going to be the first time with the turbo that we've got at least 2 oxygen sensors plugged in, even though that one only goes to a gauge right now. We'll at least have this one. I think we are all good. There's still no like coolant or anything in it, so I'm not going to let it run for too long. I still have to make the, well, I'll probably use that and just make that work, the expansion tank or overflow tank, whatever you want to call it. But I think we are good to try to fire it. And like I said, this does have the restrictor in it now. Hopefully this battery stayed charged long enough. And I did put 11 more gallons of E85 in it, so we'll see. now that the oxygen sensors are plugged in, the tune's like, wait a minute, what the fuck? It sounded real good. But it still spins nice and easy. I don't hear it rubbing on anything, so I'm not worried about that. It started chopping real good there for a second. So I think we're to the point where I need to get all the other stuff taken care of so that we can actually drive this thing. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put the stock wheels back on it, I think. So that, I think I'll probably just do off camera because that's not gonna be very exciting. And then back here, I got the wheels back off of it because I want to shorten the brake lines that are on the axle. That way that rubber part's not all looped weird. And then I've got the grill off because I was thinking about starting on swapping that bumper. If I do decide to do that, that will be in one of the next videos. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. I think this is where we're gonna call it. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. We'll see you next time with more Boost.